Disease or Addiction and How We Can Stop This Occurrence from Happening by Lindsay Briggs. Disease or addiction. Is an addiction a disease? Let's talk about the difference and what makes an addiction a disease, and what we can try to do to lower the number of people with this disease. Like diabetes, cancer, and heart disease, addiction is caused by a combination of behavioral, environmental, and biological factors. Genetic risk factors account for about half of the likelihood that an individual will develop an addiction. People feel pleasure when basic needs such as hunger, thirst, and sex are satisfied. In most cases, these feelings of pleasure are caused by the release of certain chemicals in the brain. Most addictive substances causes the brain to release high levels of these same chemicals that are associated with pleasure or reward. Over time, continued release of chemicals causes changes in the brain's systems involved in reward, motivation, and memory. When these changes occur, a person may need the substance to feel normal. The individual may experience intense desires or cravings for the addictive substance and will continue to use it despite the harmful and dangerous consequences. The person will also prefer the drug to other healthy pleasures and may lose interest in normal life activities. In most chronic form of the disease, addiction can cause a person to stop caring about their own or others' well-being and survival. These changes in the brain can remain for a long time, even after the person stops using substances. It is believed that these changes may leave those with addiction vulnerable to physical and environmental cues that they associate with substance use, also known as triggers, which can increase their risk of relapse. Chronic disease and willpower. We're going to talk a little bit right here about how it's, compared to the chronic disease, and how much, even though you have a lot of willpower, how sometimes it can cause you to still relapse. A chronic disease is a long-lasting condition that can be controlled but not cured. About 25 to 50% of people with this substance use problem appear to have a severe chronic disorder. For them, addiction is a progressive relapsing disease that requires intensive treatment and continuing aftercare, monitoring, and family or peer support to manage their recovery. What that's saying right there is pretty much people that are going through this problem and this disease, they really need support and, just monitoring of their family and friends to help them get through this. Although this disease can be treated, it will still be something they struggle with for the rest of their lives. No matter if they're clean for 10 years, you can relapse at any time. There can be any triggers, they may go riding down the road and see something where they met a drug dealer, or where they once used to hang out and use drugs there. And that can cause a trigger to make them want to use or make them feel that craving. It's really crazy through the research and, what I've learned from not necessarily personal experience, but experiences through people I know. It's really crazy how the body just changes like that. I wish I could put myself in that situation to feel and to understand what it's like, because for someone to explain it to you, it's really hard to understand what they're going through and how it feels and what the feeling feels like. You can have all the willpower you want, but just like a chronic disease, something can trigger you and you can relapse. Just like diabetes, if you eat too much sugar, or, you don't do good on your diet or in what you're supposed to do with diabetes, it can easily be, worse than what it is. I've always been told, and I work at a doctor's office, and I see it every day. People come in for their diabetic visits, and they talk about how, they just, it's the holidays, and they've been, cheating And so, I mean, just little stuff like that. I mean, it's just a good example of how this addiction can be a disease just as much as anything else can. Responsibility and why some say it is not a disease. People with addiction should not be blamed for suffering from this disease. Everyone makes choices. People do not choose how their body and brain reacts to the drugs. Therefore, people with an addiction cannot control their use while others may be able to. People with addiction are responsible for seeking treatment and maintaining clean. Family, friends, and peers need to stay in with the treatment and support the person. Same thing I was telling before about how they needed, the support from their family to be able to get through this. That is proven to really increase their chances of survival and recovery. Most people say addiction cannot be a disease because it is caused by the individual's choice to use drugs. Although that may be true, while the first use may be by choice, once the brain has been changed by addiction, most experts believe that the person loses control of their behavior. To me, choice does not determine whether something is a disease. Heart disease, diabetes, and some forms of cancer involve personal choices like diet, exercise, sun exposure, and different things. A disease is what happens in the body as a result of those choices. So, I mean, like, just little things. I mean, honestly, if you look at it, everything causes cancer. I mean, you could take a medicine and it could cause cancer. Being in the sun too much can cause cancer. But then if you're not in the sun enough, you can have a vitamin D deficiency. I mean, it's just, I know you have to make the choice of using the drug before becoming addicted or developing this disease, but I feel like there's something in different people that have the addictive brain or addictive mind frame, and it could be genetic. I mean, during my research, they haven't really proved whether if it was genetic or not. But it's something interesting to really look into. Um, so so these graphs are emergency department visits in June 2018 compared to last year in June. It's really crazy. I don't work at the hospital. I work at a doctor's office, but my mom works at the hospital, and she sees it. She works in the intensive care unit, and she sees young people coming up there. I mean, all sorts of ages, honestly, coming up there who have overdosed, and it's just really sad. And I mean, it's really sad. Some of these growths, I mean, in 2017, right here. Let's see. Heroin in this one was the most. I mean, that's more of the common drug choice I believe they choose. Let's see. So yeah, this is just you could look into it and just see the different numbers. I mean, in 2017, last year, that number was 5,777 people. I mean, it's just crazy how big it's jumped over the last few years. And it's amazing, honestly. So some of the things we can do to try and stop this epidemic, or not really epidemic, but this widespread disease from occurring. Although addiction is a disease, it can still be treated but not cured. It's the same thing as a chronic disease. It can be treated, but it cannot be cured. Some things we can try are having people go into the schools and talk to the kids about how bad this disease can be. We can have group meetings on certain nights for those who are struggling with this disease. We can, do different activities. I wouldn't necessarily say that we should talk about their experiences, because sometimes that can be a trigger. So we can try and do stuff like, maybe go out to dinner, just go out and enjoy things, not even just have a group of people that are familiar with the same thing, and that know what each other have gone through. We need to come together to try and prevent people from continuing this widespread disease that we all know as an addiction. Things previously tried are Narcan, which is also known as naloxone. It's a medication used to block the effects of opioids, especially in overdose. Narcan is used as a nose spray. From what I've seen, there may be other forms of it, like an injection, but it's supposed to reverse the symptoms or what's causing the overdose. There are drugs that can help with cravings and also help block from feeling a high when you try to use a substance, such as Suboxone, Subutex, and there is also an injection called Vivitrol. There are meetings you can attend that help while trying to cope with this disease. As mentioned before, addiction is a disease. There are ways we can stop this disease from continuing to spread. What will it take for us to realize that this is one of the most serious diseases and is killing our family and friends every day? There are so many overdoses happening every day, as shown before in graph on slide 7. We need to get together as a community and fix this problem. If we can get the people off the streets selling drugs and teach our family and friends how serious this is, maybe we can lower the amount who wants to encounter this and begin to develop this disease we call an addiction.